Hey everybody, welcome to this quick recap of UFC 235, Jones versus Smith. Not that much that I want to say about it. As you guys know, I always talk mostly about the fights that I feel are interesting to comment on because of certain things that happened, certain things that stand out, and that you can then take away things from for your own training or competitive career. So, first things first, let's look at Munoz versus Garbrandt. Well, it's pretty cut and dried, basically. What we had is Cody was doing really well throughout the majority of the first round. He got tagged, went down, ended up on the ground, did a really good job at getting back up to his feet again. Again with that jumping knee kick, that was quite impressive to do that just from going to being downed and getting out of that situation and immediately firing off very athletic technique. It's pretty impressive. Unfortunately, he did then what he apparently seems to do instinctively, and he just went into this rampage of pretty much just going full tilt and brawling it out with Pedro Munoz, which turned out to be a really bad idea, and he lost the fight. So this is 3 times in a row now that he loses in pretty much the exact same fashion. So at this stage in a fighter's career, and Cody's still relatively young, but he's had quite a few high-profile fights. He had a meteoric rise in the UFC as a competitor, so he's good. That's not it. I think his biggest issue right now is himself. He's his own worst enemy. So the result is that because of the way that he just ran at Munoz and just tried to knock him out and brawl it out, he was fighting a guy who's not really a ranked beginner either. So that kind of stuff tends to intimidate people who are in the beginning of their career or who have never experienced that before. But a guy like Munoz, he's been in more than one fight, so to speak. So he's not necessarily going to back down. And at this stage, when you fight that level of competition for Garbrandt, going into this brawling match, just standing toe to toe and duking it out, that is a high risk, high reward strategy. It's something that you would never advise somebody who's fighting at that level. It's just not smart. It's sure, I mean, spectacular. Fans love that kind of stuff, but it's not a smart strategy, and you are unlikely to succeed consistently with that. We saw that against DJ Dillashaw. He lost pretty much the same way in all those fights. It's just trying to brawl it out once he gets hit. So he seems to have this counterphobic mindset, meaning that he gets punched in the face, it rattles him, and he just charges in. It's almost as if he's afraid to be rattled, and then he just goes nuts and charges on his opponent. If, for instance, you look at the fight again, and what Cody could have done is that as he got up, he throws that jumping knee, which almost landed hard enough to give Munoz a lot of trouble. And he just did what he did for the next 5 seconds and then stopped and went back to what he did before. I'm very confident to say that he probably would have been fine. There's a good chance that he would have been able to recover, get his wits about him again, and then re-implement his fight strategy, which was working for him. He was winning that fight. But because of whatever's going on in his head, he kind of messed up that chance by just taking this huge risk. Again, it's all or nothing. Either you win that kind of brawl or you typically get knocked out. Or if you don't get knocked out, you just exhaust yourself to the point where you can't really do much afterwards. Even if you do see the openings, even if you do know what needs to be done, and you see it, you're just too tired because you wasted your energy in that big brawl. So I'm very much convinced that if Cody would have remained calm and he would have stuck to his game plan after the initial few seconds of brawl, just to put Munoz on notice, like, right, okay, dude, you dropped me. We both know that you did that. We both know that was good, but you know that moment is past now, and I'm back, and I'm going to continue beating you up and winning this fight just as before. So that's the message you want to send now. What the message he sent is that okay, you hit me. I'm going to just come at you with total disregard for my own safety until I get you. Okay, it's fine. You can do that, but again, high risk, high reward. So at this stage of his career, I'm a little bit afraid for Cody Garbrandt's potential chances of being a contender again. I think losing the last few fights he had in the way he did shows that there's an inherent problem with his fighting style, in that he can stay very focused. Watch his fight against Dominic Cruz, that he was in total control throughout the fight. So it's there. He has the potential, but there's something in him that when he gets hit, he just wants to perhaps make a point that no, I can take this, I can keep on going. Problem is that he's taking a bunch of really nasty knockouts now, so his brain is starting to suffer. At this stage, it's going to be interesting to see if his chin is still there or if it's gone. We'll see that in the next few fights. If he has some, would be really good for him is if he would take like a year off, and just work on technique and so on, and let his brain recover. Again, we know the latest developments in concussive syndrome and so on. We know now that every single punch that lands on your head damages your brain, and it recovers extremely slowly. So taking your time to recover from consecutive knockouts like he had is actually quite important, again, just for fighter safety. But overall, his career will suffer if he ends up in his next fight in a big war, and takes a lot of damage that way. Again, look at aging fighters, a lot of guys, and Wanderlei Silva recently came out and said, "Look, I was shocked to discover that I had like 8 out of all the 10 of the symptoms of pugilistia dementia." So, which is basically getting punch drunk, as they used to call it, which is your brain turns to mush because of all the beatings you take. So this kind of thing. Again, I wish Cody all the best. I think he's a talented fighter. I think he definitely has what it takes to be a champion, technique-wise, and so on. But he needs to get his mindset in order. He needs to remain. It's okay as a fighter, when you get hit, you go down, and there's this rage that wants to come out, like that you want to counter that guy and just immediately put him in his place or knock him out. That's fine, but it needs to be channeled within technique. It needs to be channeled within the game plan that you had. You just go back to your strategy, and you do that with a vengeance this time. You really pour it on, but within the tactics that you and strategy that you worked on in training camp. So that's pretty much it for that fight. I'm going to talk about Ben Askren versus Robbie Lawler then. Askren was very much everybody was looking out to see what he would do, and he finished it with a submission, so which is not surprising, put it that way. Main thing I would say is this: Robbie was beating him up fairly well before it got to that clinch position against the fence. So there was no mistaking about who was winning that fight. It was clear that Robbie just ragdolled him, and the way he slammed him to the floor. I mean, Askren, who's one of the better wrestlers out there, it was clear like Robbie was owning him. So I would definitely, I'll skip to the end for this one, but I would definitely want to see a rematch, see what would happen if Robbie gets another shot at this. Which brings us to the referee stoppage. A little bit on the fence here, in a sense that on the one hand, so it's very clear when you watch it in slow motion, you will see that Lawler's right hand comes up, he suddenly drops it, so it looks like he's out. So the referee then comes in, grabs the hand to see if there's a reaction, and you see Robbie pulling it back a little bit, and it looks a little bit like he's doing a thumbs up signal to let the ref know, like, right, dude, I'm still in the fight. But I don't think it's very clear. It could be clearer. It's not that it's not there, but I can understand that as a referee on the moment itself, you misinterpret that. That said, you see the referee, like not even a second after he checks Robbie's arm, he immediately calls off the fight. You can see immediately touch Ben Askren and signal that the fight's over. So I think it's even almost less than a second goes by from the arm pull to ending the fight. So he clearly interpreted Robbie's reaction as guy's no longer there. Was Robbie out or not? When you look at the way that hand dropped, that looks very similar to when somebody goes unconscious. So maybe he was just out for a second or half a second, then immediately came to again. We don't know. It's a little bit tough to see how well that choke was on, that Askren was putting on him because of the camera angle. But to me, it looked like it was fairly tight. And we know that Ben Askren is very, very strong. And I mean, his grip is quite good. He knows how to finish people. So even if it's not fully on, when you're in the hands of a guy at that level of grappling expertise, even a less than optimal submission hold or choke or neck crank or whatever is going to cause you a tremendous amount of pain, and that actually might get the result anyway, despite lacking perhaps some of the effectiveness of a perfectly placed technique. So in that regard, I would just love to see a rematch. Just let it happen right away. I know Askren's not interested. Well, at least he claims not to be, because, well, why would he say otherwise? Because he's not getting any younger. So if he wants to make a run at the title in the UFC, he has a vested interest in not spending too much time fighting over battles he just wins. So we'll see what happens. I think Dana White said that he wants to see a rematch, so we'll see what happens. Dana and Ben don't really get along all that great, so we'll see if Ben Askren manages to not put his foot in his mouth and just destroy his chances in the UFC now that he finally got in. So we'll see what happens. Moving up to welterweight, to the title shot, Kamaru Usman against Tyron Woodley. Deserved win for Usman. He dominated that fight, clearly. There's no discussion about that, which was a little bit surprising to me because Usman is a pressure fighter, so he keeps coming forward, he grinds away, he comes at you non-stop. When it came, there was a lot of time spent in grappling, which again, Tyron Woodley is a top-level wrestler, so you would think that he would know how to handle that, but clearly you could see that Usman just owned him there as well. And then the main point that I want to bring forward is that Tyron Woodley has a very risk-averse countering style, which I talked about on the Facebook page a little bit earlier before the fight, so that it's smart. It's not that great to watch for the fans. It's maybe a little bit boring to watch, but it's technically clever, and he's good at it. But in this case, I mean, if you watch the Till fight, he basically waited for more than a round for Till to come at him and commit to an attack. And it's the first time that Darren Till actually committed to trying to hurt Tyron Woodley, he got countered with a big right hand and he went down. And that was pretty much beginning of the end for Till. So what I noticed is that Woodley didn't really let go of his counters all that much. I don't know why. It looked to me like he wasn't really totally in there. For whatever reason, we don't know. But he never really, in my opinion, tried to get that counter going. And just when they were in stand-up, just you never saw him really try to counter. You also never really saw him do his famous charges forward, where he just blitzes in with tremendous explosive speed and just runs over people with this bulldogging punches. That he knows how to do that. And once that train gets going, it's really hard to stop it because he's got so much potential explosive energy that even if he hits you in your guard, I mean, you're backing up. I would have loved to see him do that against Usman, just to see how Usman would have reacted. Because we don't know, we've never seen it happen. So I would have loved to see that happen. I would have loved to see more counter shots. So I think Woodley kind of defeated himself by not attacking enough. I think his corner actually told him that, dude, you gotta go after it. You gotta go get that guy and be more aggressive, which he didn't do. So in that regard, it's a little bit of a disappointment. But I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. Wouldn't mind seeing how Woodley would learn from this and go back to the beginning and start from scratch and see how can I beat this guy. But in the meantime, Usman's the champ, deservedly so. He fought a good fight. He was clever, relentless, lots of pressure, and just basically neutralized Woodley in every part of the fight game. I mean, whether it was stand-up, standing, clinch, against the fence, the ground, whatever it was. He dominated clearly, so he deserved that win. And then moving on to John Jones versus Anthony Smith. A little bit of a lackluster fight. It reminded me a lot of when Jones fought Auvin Saint-Preux, who where that was after, I think it was after the first time he got caught with performance enhancing drugs in his system. I think it was after his layoff for what was the year, I can't remember, but that was all. It kind of reminded me of that, a little bit better than that fight against Saint-Preux, but it was still, I wouldn't say he was dialing it in. It looked to me more like he was like, right, okay, I know I can beat this guy. I know this guy can't beat me unless I do stupid stuff. So I'm just going to try out a bunch of different stuff. He did his jumping side kick to the leg, which he'd practiced. I think that was the first time he threw that against Saint-Preux. Hasn't done that all that much. He tried that one. You could clearly see him use his left leg in a consistently tactical manner, meaning that he would throw the left leg repeatedly, one technique after the other, and then he would change it up every single time. It was a push kick, it was a high kick, it was a side kick, it was a bunch of stuff, just the one after the other, and just picking away at Smith continuously with that leg, and then going back to different stuff. I didn't see him take a lot of risks. I basically saw him trying out, combinations, techniques, and so on, and just peppering Smith with techniques that just sapped him, just took away Anthony Smith's energy, and you could see that at the end of it. I mean, the guy has a ton of heart. That's clear. He's a courageous fighter, but he was completely outmatched here. He didn't have what it takes to let his techniques go and basically go after John Jones. He might have, though, and that was also his corner. I think it was at the third or fourth round, I can't remember. His corner said, like, dude, you have to be you. You have to attack. You have to go on offense. But Smith didn't do that. He stayed very tentative. When the few times when you did see him try to get something going, it was quite good. It wasn't half bad. He did a couple of counter punches. He did a couple of 1-2s, but he never really committed to pressuring John. And I think that's more than anything else what cost him the fight. If he had been more active, at the very least countering, at the very least not letting Jones get away with all those kicking techniques and not reacting to them, because it creates this negative cycle, meaning that Jones throws a kick, it lands, and he doesn't get punished for it. So what does he do? He throws another one. He's smart enough and experienced enough to not do the same thing twice. So he throws a different kick. That also lands. No reaction. And you can see that the kicks are hurting Anthony. I mean, it's clear that a couple of those kicks were really well placed. And you could see that Smith was having trouble eating those. Well, the only thing that does is encourage Smith to go after him some more. Encourage Jones to go after Smith some more. And there's no pressure, there's no psychological or physical pressure stopping him from doing so. So I would love to see Smith be more active, at the very least countering, just hitting back. And he's tall enough, he's got enough reach to pick good techniques so that if Jones throws a punch that he can counter correctly, if Jones launches a kick that he can launch a leg kick or whatever of his own, just before Jones can fully get away and easily defend against that, which would have made a huge difference in the way that Jones would have had to approach the whole fight. But now he was just getting away with pretty much everything. So I think, again, Anthony kind of defeated himself a little bit by being overly passive. With a guy like Jones, you can't wait for him to make mistakes. He doesn't make that many. Sure, he does, like every fighter does, but not enough. And then he's quick enough, he's smart enough, he's experienced enough and technical enough to make it difficult for you to exploit whatever mistake he makes. So you have to actively go at him and just try to reverse the pressure he puts on you and make him back up. And even then he's extremely dangerous. Look at what he did to Daniel Cormier, who tried to put pressure on him. I mean, just back up, keep him at range. And then, Cormier's famous ducking to the right that he always does. which he actually before the fight he said that, yeah, I'm not going to do that, John. So he's aware of that it's a mistake, but still did it. Jones set it up perfectly and then threw that high kick and so on. So even if you back Jones up, he's still extremely dangerous because he understands range and timing so well. So Anthony Smith not ready for this level of competition. John Jones still one of the best out there. So maybe Anthony Smith in a few, if let's say that he has 2-3 more fights and builds up his experience level a little bit more, maybe then he would be a good challenger for Jones, but not at this stage. What's next for Jones? We'll see. Again, with the UFC, who knows? Is he going to go up to heavyweight? He's been talking about it for a while. We'll see, but I don't know. Fighting Cormier again? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Cormier is interested in that fight anymore. And also, again, not sure if Cormier is still going to have many fights. He always said that he would stop at 40. But now his coach, Javier Mendez, also already said that, well, he'll do a couple more. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't think a lot of people want to see another Jones-Cormier fight. I think we kind of can put that to rest, that who's the better man in that contest. Again, regardless of who you prefer as an individual, I think that's been, I mean, that series of fights is over. We've seen that. So anyway, these are the main fights that I wanted to mention. Again, I enjoyed UFC 235. Was a bunch of good fights. The undercard was okay. Preliminary fights were okay, not that bad. But as you guys know, like I said in the beginning, I only mentioned those that I think, well, here's something interesting we can talk about and that you can take away for your own training. That's pretty much it. If you have comments, leave them here on YouTube or go to the Facebook page. Link is in the description, and you can check out all the stuff that I have over there. Thanks. Take care.